All right, I got 4:01, so we're going to call the meeting to order. So if you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for those of you who are here and those who may be online for attending our study session tonight. So our study session will be on the preparation for the interview phase for the deputy successor superintendent. So I will let Tracy take the lead, and I will let Tracy introduce our guest.
So you all know Bill Jordan with Northwest Leadership Associates, and that's the search firm that's assisting the district and the board with this process. And so Bill's here tonight to kind of walk the board through the next steps in the process. So with that, I'll just turn it right over to you, Bill.
Great, thank you, Mr. President and board and Dr. Pierce. Yeah, what I want to do is let you know what next steps are and then answer any questions. And first of all, let you know that the brochure's out. That went to all the school districts, not just the school districts in the state, but to interested deputy superintendent, assistant superintendents. It also went to the lead for the departments of superintendent trainings in the colleges and universities. And then throughout the Northwest and around the state, the postings on the WASA website, on the WASDA website. And I've sent out, in addition to people receiving those, when I get a contact, I send out an application packet. And that application packet is a letter that describes the process. It's the application, fillable application, and the brochure that describes the position. Then also I attach the a representation of the organizational chart, the responsibilities of the deputy successor superintendent. So those are out there. The interest level has been, I would say, a little slow, not as much as I would anticipate for the significance of the position. I've talked to and personally sent out over 20 application packets, have one completed application. But I am talking with superintendents that are have requested packets, and also deputy superintendent, assistant superintendent positions. Also, some of those conversations are, tell me more about the duties. The organizational chart really helps the understanding that there's work to do in addition to spending time with the board next year and with Tracy. There's the supervision of the operations side of the district. That helped clarify that there's real work. It's not just shadowing superintendent. Also, we talk about the board. You know, how's the board? Do they get along? How long they've been around? What's their thinking about strategic planning and relationships? And that's where you've made it clear you want in the brochure someone to build relationships and trust with the community and with employees. I talk with them about the importance of the written part of this application, where they spend time addressing the challenges and opportunities so that you can read those. And then when it gets to March 13th, when we get into executive session, we talk about those writings and those people and how they've written, whether they've whether what they've written has resonated with you to the point where you want to talk with them further. And then that winds up being preliminary interviews. So I've had some superintendents that are going to just remain where they are. They are interested, but they want to just stay with they. And it's interesting because they requested the application packet, but they just decided, no, we're going to stay where we are. And a lot of that conversation happens after they've sat down with their board in an executive session and talked about, here's what I'm thinking, and the board, and they discuss, well, here's what the future looks like in the district.
It's part of that because they have to notify their board that, as soon as they notify their board that they are interested, right, then that almost sends a message to that board that they could be leaving, and the board almost needs to start looking, and that's kind of.
It's yes. The short answer to that, yes. The relationship the six of you have is unique and needs to be protected, and some of the dynamics around that kind of conversation can change the relationship. So I've also talked to superintendents who said they've had that conversation and told the board they're going to apply and will receive their application. So they say they're getting along fine with their board, so they're not leaving under duress, but they have made it known that they feel it's time to leave or seek something else.
Scary move.
Bill, too, we kind of talked about this when we had our call, but the fact that it's kind of an odd superintendent search, with it being this role for 1 year versus you're coming in and you're getting like a 3-year contract out of the gate, and this is more of like the 1 year and then the 3 year. So it's kind of made some little uneasy that it's kind of a guaranteed 1 year, right? Is that?
It is part of the conversation because it's a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
And at the end of that 1 year, either party can actually probably make a different decision.
Right.
And that's how it goes. It's not as much of a deterrent as I thought it might be.
Okay.
It's, in fact, I haven't heard it be a point where it caused people not to apply. And I think one of the reasons is there's definite work to do. There's the ability to build relationship with the board and work with Tracy for a year that the people that are going to apply are trusting that, hey, this is going to work, and
Yeah.
we're just going to move ahead with it. But it always comes up as what's the board like? And things go well in a year, am I going to get that job? And I'm saying, yeah, that's the plan.
And I would express to them, we would be in a very difficult situation if that didn't happen, because then we would suddenly not have a succession plan. So in a lot of respects, we'd be in a much more difficult situation than even they would be, because we would be scrambling for something.
You're exactly right. And that's why this is so critical on confirming that you get the right person, that a year from now, you're still confident this is the right person. So that's why we need to use some rigor now.
You mentioned one thing at the very beginning, that the application's a little slower coming in. You mentioned a couple things. Are there any other big reasons that you see that could easily be remedied for the?
No, I don't believe it's not a district issue. It's just superintendents, and I would also say CFOs or finance people are just really hard to find. We used to get multiple we get 20, 30 applications for a superintendent position, and it's just not happening like that. In a district this size, actually, there's probably less completed applications than for a district in a smaller size, where people are starting out and looking for that next level step. This is a big step. This is a big responsibility here in a big district. So,
You're not gonna go from being, you typically go to a smaller district, right? And then a district like this, not jump all the way to a district like this.
there's two decisions. There is a decision that superintendent candidates have to make. Tracy and I made these decisions when we decided to be superintendents. You either go to a smaller district from your principalship or your executive director position or assistant, and jump right into a smaller district superintendent and make that transition then either from that level or to the next level. Or you many times become an assistant or a deputy superintendent in a mid-sized district or a larger district and then make your transition to the superintendency. It works one of those two ways. So we've talked to people that are in that assistant deputy range in districts that will be applying, and also superintendents in, I would call them mid-sized districts that are interested in the position.
Is there time of year? Is there a time of year that superintendents or somebody who's maybe looking to make that jump, is there a time of year that they would expect a job opening to be looking versus now? Or is there a time?
Yeah, well, no, it's typically when, from my experience, over the Christmas vacation time is many times when the people reflect on their
Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shortly after that, so we opened this in a timely manner. This is the time superintendents and high-level administrators typically have their evaluations, making career decisions. So we're in line with that. Yeah.
Did you look beyond Washington State, and did you look at?
Yes, we put out. It's all over, but I haven't received an inquiry from elsewhere. We have a person that's interested that was a superintendent in Oregon, and one from Idaho that has experience in Idaho.
And you've also looked at people outside of the school system, like executives or accountants.
And
You mentioned,
we've not
and
received
you mentioned
any,
those are hard to get.
Yeah,
Those people to come over.
Yeah. I've seen successful superintendents, so have you, where I think John Stanford was a superintendent in Seattle. Remember that? And he was military background. I've seen several. One superintendent was the vice president at Kroger Foods and wound up being superintendent Federal Way. So I've seen that happen and work. Well, and actually one other one in this region where the board president, who was an attorney, wound up resigning and being named superintendent.
Or Gabe,
There you go.
third name in the ring.
Board attendance, super.
So, so the next time we meet is March 13th. It closes on the 8th. And at that point, when you get to that meeting, and I'm asking you for the time or for you to speculate on when we should get together on that day. You will have read every completed application. And so you should come to the meeting with an idea of who best matches what you said was important on the brochure, characteristics, qualifications, and in the they're meeting the challenges and opportunities. So you should have read them all. you may have an idea when you come in, and I want to make sure and talk to this person. And that meeting then is reviewing their qualifications, their applications, and then the board determining how many of those do you want to speak with and interview. And those interviews take place on the 20th and 21st.
When should we anticipate getting all of those applications?
You probably get them, if that's a Wednesday, probably hopefully the weekend before or pretty close.
So it closes
So
on
I'm
the
gonna get,
8th,
actually,
right?
I'm gonna send those to you and you're gonna get them out. But,
So we can get them one at a time too, right? We don't have to.
As soon as I get them from you, we'll send them.
Yeah, so there's
all of
one
you.
completed and then with completed, and there's 5 others that are kind of in that,
I would say, yeah, that may be a good number.
you know,
It's pretty close to what we had last time.
so kind of working through the packet.
What's that?
I think the packet's pretty big, right? So they're working through getting all the
Yeah,
stuff to the.
yeah, we're asking for, 4 to 6 letters of recommendation. We're asking them to write academically into the challenges and opportunities, to fill out the application, present a resume. And so if they come in closer to the 8th, then what I'm doing, I've now have the information I need to do some of the background on them. I can do some preliminaries by talking to, I've already started that. If a person is interested in the job, I start asking around now. I have to be careful that, especially some of them who say, I don't want anything public until the 20th, basically.
Right.
Or immediate release at that time or real close to it, for those interviews.
So roughly around the 8th, which is a Friday, we should anticipate that we'll have most of the applications, if not all.
Yeah, that weekend,
Okay.
yes. I'll get them out. If there's, usually there were 1 or 2 that may have reference letters still coming in or something like that. But the critical part of the application, the formal application, their resume, their writing, all of that needs to be done.
Think of it like just the board pack.
Yeah.
Same with the board package.
Yeah, that's why I was just making sure. Ideally, we have at least part of the weekend. Just one night before.
So Bill, I'm gonna, so I'm gonna be Debbie Downer over here. So what happens if we get 4 resumes and we're underwhelmed with all 4? What do we do then?
Then we start over.
Yeah, I'm
You don't
Settle.
don't spend any time on anything that we think is not worth looking at. It's too big a job and too important. And if we don't get the quality, no, we just won't move forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great question, and we talked about this a little bit on the call earlier this week. If we don't receive candidates that we want to move forward with, then we'll pause until the fall and then restart back up and kind of do a regular superintendent search, I guess, at that point.
Okay, well, I was also asking about the law about indentured servitude.
Yeah, I was going to say, does this automatically mean you're going to kick your retirement back a year? Because I can already tell you that.
And we just keep extending the contract.
We couldn't find anybody.
Like it or not, I think she signed the contract, you got it.
Yeah.
We looked really hard, couldn't find anybody.
There's going to be an empty chair up there. I don't know what to tell you. But I just want to add to that, because I think one thing we talked about on that call was, so plan B, if that happens, we still need a CFO and, that assistant soup, deputy soup position to oversee operations. So, a plan B could be, well, process didn't work. I mean, I hope it does. I think it will. But if it doesn't this time around, then we shift gears. We just post for an assistant soup position for operations, not to be the successor. We get that, and then do this again same time next year, essentially. And it's just for the superintendent.
Thank you.
And along those lines, these people that you've talked to before, I mean, are we feeling pretty confident we're going to have good applicants then?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just need one. Just need one really, really good one.
Yeah, like last time, it's all took.
On March 13th, so typically exec session happens after the business portion of the meeting, so it
Okay.
just kind of depends. We've tried to keep the agenda for the business portion of the meeting limited, so it doesn't go really late, so the board has a lot of time. But if we do it before, then there's a finite time, I mean, it has to end. So I think the thinking was it would be exec session, hopefully starting around like, I don't know, 7:30 after the business portion of the meeting. And then you have as long as you need to determine which of the candidates you're going to bring in for preliminary interview. So is that,
I think we
Does that work?
prefer to be on the end of the meeting,
End of
and
the
yeah,
meeting.
It works for me, I'm fine
Okay.
with it, yeah.
we have a short, yeah, we purposely kept it short so we could get through the meeting, do the business, and then get into it.
So we have the primary work of determining who you want to talk to. Another thing we'll talk about that night are interview questions. So you can be thinking about those now. And they can be anything that makes sense to you in relation to what you want to know about this person and their qualifications for the job. Legally.
Are you like Tracy?
Legal questions.
So we'll want those questions, they don't need to be finalized that night, and we want to get down to anything that, I'll give you the opportunity to look at maybe some draft questions. And you can,
Could we give those questions to you now or early?
I'm prepared to do it at any time, I'll leave that up to you all.
Yeah, the one question we had with, honestly, with the interview questions is if we do it, we don't want the questions to be leaked out and the candidates being able to get them online
Yeah,
or
for
social
sure.
media or anything. So
Sure.
I think if, my personal opinion would be if we wait till the 13th, we go through the questions, we come up with the questions there and then we have them. Again, we don't want the candidates to have all the questions, so they come in and prep for 2 weeks before they come and answer them.
But I'd appreciate,
I'm open to whatever.
yeah, I'd appreciate you providing some draft questions, some different ideas.
Okay.
I think that'd be helpful.
We'll do that, for sure.
and so what I could do, because in the email that you sent to us, there's that initial set of draft questions. I could send those out to you, Paul, and then individually, I mean, can't have a meeting, right?
Right.
But individually, if you've got, after you've looked at that, if you've got questions that you think you want to come off of that, or questions that you want to add, you could just individually email Gabe and me, and then I could get that started, so you could just try to review it maybe as part of the work on the 13th.
And what I'd find helpful for that also is you've obviously interviewed before for a superintendent position, questions that you found that maybe may not be on that list. If you could add questions that you found
Yep.
helpful,
Okay.
or questions in your position that you are now, that you look and say, these are things the incoming superintendent needs to have a good understanding of or a good grasp of, that would be really helpful. You know
For
your
sure.
job better than anyone.
Great, yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Good. So once you've made a determination as to who you want to come back and interview on the 20th and 21st, I will call them and get them in the schedule. Interviews will start at 5:30, and what I want to talk with you now about is an observer panel and the opportunity for members of the community and members of the district to observe this process and the interaction between you and the candidate and how they answer questions. This observation panel, we have an application method so that if someone's interested They can just fill out the application, send it in, and then we're going to do a random number generator and select, it's just going to be a random selection of community and of staff. But I'm going to move ahead with that if you're all wanting, and that's a silver pen, that would sit off to the side and just kind of watch this. You'll be at the dais during these interviews. Candidate will be right here, observer panel, back over this way. So these are public interviews, so there could be a lot of other people in the audience that may come and watch this, and they can fill out input as well. But the observer panel, the way we have done this, and we did it last time, was with a Chromebook or some method for them to give real-time feedback to you as a board. And that can also be printed out.
I think it's an excellent idea. I'm curious to know, you said that it's community members and staff members. If we do a random number generation, is there a way to make sure that we have, can we at least control it enough that it's an even or even-ish number of staff versus community members? I would hate
We're
to.
recommending 10.
Right, but can
apiece.
we make sure that it's 5 and 5 or that it's 6 and 4? What I don't want to
I
end
think
up
it's
is.
10 apiece.
No, 10 apiece.
Oh, 10
20.
apiece.
10 apiece.
Oh, it'll be
And
20,
the
sorry.
second handout is.
Does that explain it? Okay.
Here,
Yeah, 20 total
Okay.
people.
would go out.
Yeah,
That's
they-
great. My concern was that it was going to be heavy one side or the other, and I want to make sure both groups are represented.
Oh, yeah,
so-
no, this,
Okay.
so it'd be random pick of community and then a different pick for
Of staff.
staff.
And
You can
that's,
see there's, in your packet, you see the invitation to apply for the interview panel. There's the language that would go out. And this can go out over your key communicators that I know you have, to all staff. It can be a media release. It can, and that has a time certain that has to be on March 8th as well, at 1 p.m.
I have a question. Why,
this is like March
Just-
8th.
better understanding, why are we doing a random number generator?
So I think the thinking is if there's 15 applications, how would we select?
I guess, why do we ask questions about community involvement?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that too.
Things like
Yeah,
that. if-
well-
if
Because I
we're
don't
not-
think I was wondering that same thing.
Yeah, that, because, I'll tell you what,
Yeah, please.
because sometimes boards want to balance and get a cross-section of the community. And that demographic allows for,
Well, I guess-
so it wouldn't apply, you're right, it wouldn't apply in this case.
Because to your point exactly, I mean, part of me says, why don't we select the 10 by looking at their involvement so we can get a nice cross-section of the community? If we do it random, we could get potentially 10 people that look exactly the same. And if we took 10 people and tried to, I mean, personally, I'd love to hear from a wide variety. And I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I agree, we want a cross-section. I think we want the panel to look as close to the community as they can. And certainly, picking it would make that, to our best of our knowledge, but the random, the nice thing about that is it just shows no favoritism, it just is, so I can see both ways.
Oh, yeah.
So there's multiple ways to do it. As we discussed, one of the ways that's happened in the past is the board just picks the people and sets them on there. Now, we're obviously opening the interview up to everyone. So if 100 people show up, 100 people can fill out the thing and turn it in, right? But as far as the panel goes, the random number generator being done by the district removes any narrative or anything that the
We'll get
board
accused of
did
being,
anything.
we'll get
So
accused of like cherry picking or whatever.
it keeps it fair and as balanced as possible. So yeah.
I'm fine either way. I was curious.
I mean, what Josh does actually makes sense, I mean,
The boards have this is your process. The boards have done it multiple ways. Some boards say each board member picks 2 people.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
And there's boards where they say, no, we want people to apply and we want to know how they fit. And then there's random, whatever's going to work best and puts the board feeling
What do you think,
comfortable with
Mike?
the process.
Mike, what do you think?
I'm good either way. It's,
I think we're safest to randomize it.
we'll randomize it for sure. Yeah, picking people, I think we're still putting ourselves up to grief.
I think we're accused of
Sounds good.
something,
Yeah.
you know, if we pick.
So if that's the route you're going to go, then I think we wouldn't need to ask a bunch of questions.
I think
about
the value of the questions is that it kind of self-weeds, it selects, if you have to answer the questions, maybe they don't pertain to being selected or not, but it does kind of self-select those that are
You do, I think you want
going
them
to
from the
put
district.
towards and,
You would like them from
yeah,
the district.
and you know, when you're required to put thought to paper, it shows that you're serious about the reason you're there.
But at the same
and-
time, I wouldn't want to lose somebody simply because they haven't been particularly involved. I mean, a lot of the parents in our community may not be particularly involved in any organization or activity, but I still value their input.
Maybe we could at
Sure.
least make sure they're in the community, like if they are a
That's true.
resident.
They gotta
you
be a
know, like,
resident of the community.
Maybe there's some like basic questions like your
Yeah,
address.
actually, that's the top 3. Give
Yeah.
a child.
So,
Well, we can
so
edit
if we,
this.
if we left all of the questions except for that community involvement
Mhm.
box
Yeah.
and just took that off,
Yeah.
everything else could be.
And-
Yeah,
Part of
but
it.
also you don't have to, I mean, it doesn't have to be a community member that has a child in the Kennewick School District. I mean, that's an important
True.
segment of the community as well
Yeah.
that,
I think you just want somebody in the school district.
well, yeah, someone who lives in
Yeah.
Kennewick,
Yeah.
right? But I don't know that it has to be someone who has a
So the
child.
I would agree.
Maybe right down at the bottom.
And actually, I guess, just quickly looking at the top, we don't say that anywhere on here. Oh, okay, actually, the last one, sorry, I was looking at the top. I'm currently a resident of the Kennewick School District. Perfect.
Yeah. So we'll delete that. Right?
And so, just so we're clear, because we're going to turn this into some kind of electronic application.
Yeah.
Do you want to eliminate those questions, do you have a child,
I think it's good to know.
children?
I think it's good. I'm happy to know, but maybe that's not like a defining, like if they don't have a child, you know.
Well,
they
it's
can
going to
still
be random.
We're
It's
yeah,
not
we're
gonna
not
be
even, we're not
anything.
even going to look at
Yeah.
these, to be
We'll
honest
just
with
have
you.
to
My next
differentiate
question
between
is-
staff and.
The real question
Yeah.
is like this community board, like, I mean, they're not obviously picky or anything, it's just, they're gonna give us some feedback and we're gonna look at that feedback and
your
hopefully make
decision.
our decision. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
ultimately our decision.
Now, though, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, so the observation panel, though, they're going to have the ability in real time to provide feedback, and we're going to like take all that together and kind of have some sort of system with the feedback, right?
You're
Is
gonna-
that, so we'll know, like, the community, these observers are saying candidate A it was the top choice amongst you. So we'll have some feedback like that, right? Versus anybody who just shows up, they're going to get the form, they're going to turn it in.
Yeah.
You know, we'll have to catch that
That's
on the
wh-
side.
That's where I want to talk with Ron and
Yeah.
we, technology-wise, we get it all figured out.
Ron's got this.
So there is a point to being on the,
Ron says we're good.
there is a
I'll
point
say
to being on the, like, putting in for the panel rather than
Yes.
just showing
Oh,
up,
sure.
because
That,
your feedback's going to get captured and aggregated with the other 20 people providing feedback to us. If you just show up and you fill out the form, we're going to collect
it's
it,
going
but
to be a
it's not going to
different
be
form.
in that.
It's
Yeah.
not going to be the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so there's a separate process, so you'll have the panel of the staff and the community, and then there are other people, anybody can
They
come.
can provide some input.
And they can provide
They're
input.
not going to be providing it at the level
Okay,
that the panel.
great.
So this is,
So do you want those questions? Back to those
I
questions. Do you want
I
to still
don't think it
include
even
them or not?
matters, honestly.
I think if they live in Kennewick.
Yeah, my only concern is we have, you know, Kennewick taxpayers
Yeah.
in this deal, like, you
I
know,
agree.
Yes.
Yeah.
that's my bigger issue, is we have people who are in the district.
Yeah, exactly. And that, the application acknowledges, their acknowledgement says they have to
Yeah.
be the district.
Exactly.
Right.
That's all-
Everything
that's
else,
all
I
I
think,
care about.
Yeah.
Everything
For
else-
those, staff
Good.
might not be residents.
Yeah, no, it's, no, I'm just,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
Yeah.
Just-
Yep.
totally different.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
all right, good. Um, And they have to be here both days for every interview.
Actually, can we, just one thought, sorry, on the staff, can we divide it up into two groups and do 5 and 5? 5 with student facing and 5 that are non-student facing? Because
Those
they're,
who want admin and.
yeah, so
five
like
five
admin,
teachers.
janitors, all those people are one, and then teachers and paras are another group, because they're very different groups, right?
That's a good idea.
And if we're randomizing this, we could end up getting 8 or 9 teachers in one.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And if we just split those two, then we get a little bit, that's a group we can easily
A little more
control.
diversity.
And just diversify the group. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, I like that.
That way we're getting more input from people who are seeing and experiencing different things.
Yeah.
And you said that this closes on the 8th as well, Bill?
Yes. 1 o'clock, yeah. Just get it in at the same time.
So just a little over, like a week and a half to get the word out and get people to apply, and so we got to get on it, getting the word out.
I think we
Okay.
It won't take
we will
long.
plan to get this out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Or Friday at the latest. We just have to build the application,
Yeah.
hoping people are paying attention.
Late night.
Robin and Ron are here, so.
Okay, so on the 21st, so all board members here on the 20th and 21st March. And after the last interview on the 21st, an executive session to determine who would like to come back for final interviews.
Okay.
All right? And then those are scheduled for April 8, 9, and 11.
Now, if we only have 1 or 2 candidates that we really liked for starters, do we still, let's say we only had 1 candidate that we really liked, and then, do we still do a final interview?
I would say,
The final interview is more than just a final interview with us. It's
we
a
changed,
full.
the format.
Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
we decided on the 13th, we'd do something different. It's really difficult to have just one candidate. I predict it won't come down to that, but if it does, that person steps out, you're done. We'll deal with that on the 13th.
Okay.
Because,
Sounds good.
so we'll just agree to be flexible at that point.
Yeah.
After spring break, April 8, 9, and 11, that's a full day format. You can see a draft of that in your packet, what that day looks like. For the board, the board gets together at 5 o'clock, so your obligations start at 5 and then run through the rest of the evening. And then on the 11th, you'll either have an executive session the evening of the 11th after the last candidate is done with their community forum, or you could do it the next morning, next day. But most boards just get, by that time, they have a pretty good idea.
And we have a board meeting on the 10th, correct?
It's a full week.
Yeah, you're meeting every day.
We're coming out of
Yeah.
spring break, we'll be rested and ready.
Yeah.
I think I like you guys.
Just real quick, Dr. Pierce, so Micah is gonna step in and do the orientation on those 3 days.
Okay, great. And then I have a question, and I don't know if this is a question for the board or for you, Bill, or both, but in terms, like, I've talked to the Superintendent Student Advisory Council students about this and, making sure that at least, hopefully all of them, that at least most of them can participate on these 3 days. How do we go about identifying, like, the district staff the principal supervisors, directors, the business community leaders,
Just, yeah, well,
certificated classified staff, is that like we tap? You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing with the panel. Are they invited? I don't think it's everybody come. How does that,
yeah,
what does that look?
pretty much it can
Oh, it
be.
is? Okay.
Yeah, anybody comes. Where it would, community business leaders would be an invitation
Okay.
for, that you and the board have regular communication with you and get in here. Certificated classified staff, it's just anybody who can come.
Okay,
And,
so it's just open
room
invitation
could
for
be-
that? Okay,
Be full.
okay.
And it's a,
so,
it's a.
I know the community forum is, so, and they could also come to that too.
Yes.
And that's open,
Yep.
Meeting to
Staff,
all, okay.
anybody can come to the open forum.
okay.
So one of either the board
okay.
or I'm be hosting this, introduce the candidate, they take 5 or 6 minutes to introduce themselves, and then it's wide open. It's how are they going to handle every and any question, and then we get feedback from each of those groups. But yeah, it's district staff, everybody in the building can show up.
Okay.
So
it's
these
just open
panels then,
invitation.
these 45-minute panels, so cabinet staff shows up at 9 to 9:50, they hear from the candidate, and after that, they've got 40 minutes to just whatever questions they have.
Yep.
How does the community forum one work then? Are we gonna do signups? Like you need to come and sign up? Because I can't imagine.
If you
I mean-
anticipate that there will be more people that will fill this room, then we need to go somewhere else.
Well, I don't know
think we'll be
I don't know
okay.
about filling the room, but I'm just wondering, how are we gonna determine who gets to ask, like, are we just gonna do like public comments? You sign up on the sheet and then you get to ask your question?
Yeah, we've done it both ways, where you find out how the candidate manages the room
Oh, okay.
and manages difficult questions, or one person trying to dominate the conversation and how they work themselves out of that and go around to other folks. You can learn a lot by how they manage that time. I've also seen it where questions can be written out and given to the moderator and then asked.
I like
So
the
that-
first.
So, yeah, that's,
Left to your own.
Charge.
that, you can find out a lot, because you may have a person in the community that enjoys coming to the meetings and maybe dominating, maybe dominating, or trying to push on a certain issue. That, I think you can learn a lot about how a person answers those questions and deals with people.
So these, I know that the board involvement starts at 5, but it seems to me that observing a lot of this is important into going into making a
Well,
decision.
here's what I'd recommend, that one or more board members, one, at the most 2, obviously, but one, be the person that introduces each one of these sections. I would say for the cabinet, that board member not remain in the room introduce them and then step out. Okay? That should be a different level of conversation than you might find with other here, because believe it or not, sometimes the topic of the school board comes up.
Yeah. So this is mainly an opportunity for the candidate to learn about the school district.
And the people that they're talking to fill out forms.
Okay, so that was my next question, was will we be getting
on each one
feedback?
of those candidates
Okay.
from each one of those forms. But if there's someone who has the time to introduce, and the office staff and the council and the principals, and kind of sit in the back and listen, that's a good thing too. Spend the day.
Then it sounds like they're going to be running that meeting in a sense, correct? Running the principal, supervisor, and director meeting, and running the business community leaders, right?
It's an open forum.
Yes, so they'll be kind of doing it however they want.
Yep.
Do we want to make sure and notify them that they'll be doing that before so that they can kind of have a plan?
Here's what I remember.
Yeah.
So during that kind of orientation time in the morning, right, with the candidate, that's in addition to whatever you've talked to them ahead of time. But, for example, I'm trying to remember, Bill, who was there, for example, with the Superintendent Student Advisory Council. When I was applying, I remember going into the room, it wasn't just me and the students. I remember somebody being there. Was it you? Sorry.
I'm there all day.
Yeah, and kind of facilitating
Yeah.
it. And so there's like introducing and then, so it's not like they're just on their own.
No. So the
But with the
board-
community forum, yeah, I remember you introduced, and then typically the candidate, you've got a few, you kind of introduce yourself, talk about whatever, and then it's open up for questions, and it was just like calling on people and
Yeah,
talking.
so if this is I'm going to be there for sure, but if there's a board member that would like to come and say, hey, this is a tough decision, we'd like to get your input, this is going to help us, that's a good message from the board to the participants. And if one of you are available at any one of those times, it doesn't need to be the same person all day, but you might just plug yourself in somewhere and say, I'd like to show up for this.
And then the interview, the 5 to 6:30 PM in exec session with the board is, what does that look like for the board?
That looks like, again, many times it's sitting in the dais and a table here. Sometimes it's this close.
I think we had a
but
conference
there's-
room, one of the conference
Yeah.
rooms probably.
Yeah. That would be good,
Yeah.
actually.
Mhm.
And that's the executive session. That's where the questioning is not as formal as the preliminary interviews. It's more probing, more conversational,
Discussion based.
questions back and forth and interactions as something that's said draws another comment to your mind, and you can jump in and try and pin that down right then. So it's a different format. We'll cover that on when we finish the preliminary interviews. I'll give you a draft of how that might look. So it's less formal, more probing, more conversational, but we can get into it's an executive session, we can get into some serious things about, their background or their experience, or they may ask you too. So some tough questions at that time. Right? What other questions might you have? Or what can I clear up?
Well, one question that, I don't know if I think it's okay to say this out loud, but when we're asking questions to them, I think maybe having some scenarios.
I've got that thing.
Okay.
It's the what would you do if, or what about this? or-
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, in relation to finance and personnel and all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Curriculum. Yeah, good, Michael.
Now, we'll just be flexible if we say we only take 2 to final interviews, say we just have 2 that we want to discuss, then we'll just decide what day we prefer to have them in, right? And then just cancel it on the 3rd day or whatever it might be.
I send them the search calendar so that they know that these days, if they're in the hunt,
Yeah.
they block out that day.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about the process?
Joyce, do you feel like this is good? I mean, you've been through this process. Does this seem?
No, I think this is
kind of, typical process, and it's a good process. I think you definitely want to hear all different voices, and while it's the board's decision, it's important to get the input, from all the different groups, and I think it's a rigorous process too.
And is there going to be an opportunity for each of these groups? I guess this was kind of asked, and you said there's a form, but is there a way we can get feedback quickly from each of these?
They'll fill out a form.
Okay.
And
So just by form, and then we'll get that when?
hey,
Okay.
I mean, I'll be turning those probably into Patty or.
So we can
Yeah,
expect to get them that evening at 8:30 or something after the forum, so we can look over. Ideally, I guess part of it is I would love to get those responses when I'm walking into my executive session at 5, so I can already
Yeah,
see,
you have.
okay. Because I just think that would be
You're gonna
helpful.
want to get a little early.
Yeah.
Because that interview's gonna start. So there'll be multiple ones throughout the day. Just start looking at.
This is,
see it on
yeah,
that
I
slide?
do, and it's maybe more logistics.
Yeah.
So are these paper forms that people fill out? And so it's not really a collated kind of
And I guess
You're not
that's,
gonna get it.
thing?
You're not gonna get a printout of them. that's right.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I would really like feedback, if it's possible, and maybe if I'm just the only one, I'll be quiet, but I would like feedback going into the executive session at 5 o'clock. Feedback from what the superintendent, student advisory council thought, what the principals thought. Obviously, Tracy, you'll be there, so we can get input from you and the business community leaders, because if they express a concern, I can then ask questions about it during the executive session.
So what, I would recommend that you guys plan on getting together at 4:30 or 4.
Am I the only one that feels that way? or
No,
do you guys-
I
No,
do feel that
it's-
way. I'm wondering is it possible to have those that are, instead of filling out paper reviews, to do a Google Docs? Because then everything can be entered,
Or
on
Ron
the
comes,
backside,
yeah.
it presents as a spreadsheet, and then we can all have access to the
short
same
answer is
thing.
yes.
Okay, I know the
Not
logistics of
everybody's
it.
gonna have,
Right.
not everybody's gonna have a
Yeah.
Chromebook or access, and so they can do paper if they want.
I think, yeah, we can have paper available, but even if we had a QR code that someone could just use their phone to scan with and just, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out a way that we can.
How do you get
That
that
would work.
quickly and in
Yeah.
a way that
Others-
you can digest it, right?
Just scan them in.
Ron says Ron was
Send a
shaking his
PDF.
head like, yeah, I got this handled.
He left.
Scan them.
So let me, can I throw a curveball here real quick, maybe? What if, it might buy us a little more time to get that feedback, but what if the exec session and the community forum were flipped? And the exec session was the last thing, so then, as board members, we could come to the community forum, we could sit, we could listen, hear, we could review feedback, it gives us a little more time to do that, and then the last thing is that discussion might be beneficial, I don't know.
I like that because then again, it provides us, to me, I see it as, that's the time, that executive session, it's essentially behind closed doors, right? So we can ask him any of the questions that may have come up as concerns along the way. So if we're sitting in the community forum,
Or her.
or her, excuse me, her, yes, I'll use the, yeah, if
I'm
we're
just
sitting in the
teasing
forum and she, there are concerns about that have been brought up earlier, we can ask her specifically about those issues. I guess that's my whole thing is we're doing all this, which is awesome. But ultimately,
Yeah, I
the
think
decision
flipping
is
them
up
is
to
easy.
the 5 of us, and if we don't get that information, it doesn't help us.
Is there any downside to flipping that? Maybe, see, I think it's.
If you could get, will that bring people? Is that a time that people will come in?
Yeah, that was my only concern. Our board meetings start at 5:30, which isn't too much off from that time. So it's the time that the community is accustomed to showing up.
Or we
to-
could do dinner.
Or we could do dinner at the 5 and then,
Yeah,
Do dinner at 5 to 5:45, and then we
That would
do
work.
the community session from 5:45 to
Yeah.
Yeah.
that would get people
6:45.
able to come in from work or whatever else they're doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's do that.
My next question is, obviously, things have changed a little bit with videoing. So are these sessions going to be recorded or live streamed like we do our board sessions. So
Executive session?
not the executive session, but like all these ones throughout the day. So
No.
boardroom A, B, like none of the, okay. So that's just you're here.
Yeah.
Not unless that's a protocol that has to happen in
Yeah,
this
no, I
district.
think
Okay.
that I want, if the community forum, if that's a board meeting, then that needs to
Not a
now,
board meeting.
Well, the problem is there will be,
but if there's,
there's going to
all
be
the
three of
board
us here,
members there,
probably at least. I imagine most of us, if we're having dinner with them,
Mhm.
would stay for we
Right.
won't be leaving just for
Yeah.
the board. So then we probably would need, and
Right.
I actually think it's great to have people so that people are at home, just like we usually do the public comment section. If people at home, you know, that are online can submit questions because they may not be able to come. I don't know, that's my, again, more feedback to me gives us,
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of logistics of doing that, how we would, because I think the community forum sounds like it's gonna be more of a free forum, having them work the room, do their thing.
yeah.
Again, you tell me, I've never been to one, so, but if that's the case, then we got the,
Oh, good point.
so again, we can totally do it. We can do that for halftime, say, okay, hey, stop, now we're gonna take, you know, questions from online if we have them, or from the,
Well, and I
People as
guess
well.
technically, it's not a board meeting if we aren't participating, correct? If we don't discuss any business, if we're just sitting
No,
in
you're sitting back.
if we're just
behind
sitting on
the-
the sides or in the crowd, if we don't discuss any business, then it's not a board meeting
No,
by
it's
the,
not.
my recommendation would be if the board all wants to be there, which I think is a good idea for the community forum, and it's between the dinner, so and the exec session, so you'll all be here, we could have it as a board meeting and have it broadcast as a board meeting, but I think it would be challenging to do the ask a question from remotely.
Yeah.
But I think it could be
But it
there
could be
unless there's
broadcast.
some reason why it couldn't be. But, you know, we broadcast board meetings and it would be a board meeting / community forum. You wouldn't be doing any business or anything like that, but then we would just do the live stream.
I would,
Of it.
that's kind of what I was kind of thinking myself was posted as a board meeting, the community forum, we live stream it. If you can't make it, at least you can watch it.
Yep.
If you've got questions or concerns, shoot us an email to the board so we can see it. But again, the logistics of trying to monitor the chat to ask questions would be difficult. And I think too, if at the end of the day, if you take the time out and you show up to the event and you have a question, I think you should have a chance to ask your question versus trying to pick through Zoom questions and stuff. So, but I think playing it or live streaming it, I think that just opens it up again to.
More people, the more open it is, the better.
So start with dinner at 5.
Well, now Ron comes back in after we had all the technical
I'll fill
questions.
in.
All right.
Okay, dinner at 5. Community forum, 6:30. Executive session, 7:30.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we need an hour, we probably don't need an hour and a half for dinner.
No, 5.
So just like you want to do 5:30 to 6:30? Or
Well, we had
5 to
dinner,
6, you want to bump everything up or back?
dinner was 45 minutes is what I
Yeah.
had on here, so we
Yeah.
did 5 to 5:45. And then you do the community forum being an hour, so then you do
Like
5:40.
6 to 7,
Yeah.
just so there's a
Yeah.
little time between. 6 to 7,
And then we'll do-
7 to 8:30 for the,
okay, well, let me think, because the community forum though was, it was an hour,
yeah,
yeah.
so I'm just keeping
6
the
to
times
7, yep,
exactly the same.
yep, yep.
just-
And then like
Shuffle the
7:15 exec session to
8:30.
Yeah, ish. And then we're done.
wait, 7:15 to 8. I'm sorry.
So if you go
I'll figure it
5 to
out.
5:45, and then 6
I got it.
to,
Yeah,
Oh,
6 to 7, I just.
and I
yeah,
see what
got
they
it.
did. There was no interim between the executive session and the dinner right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if we do add one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we'll be fine.
Well, I think we've kind of ironed out the logistics. It is 5 o'clock. Is there any other final questions or comments?
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
All right. Well, if nothing else, we'll adjourn the study session and we will pick up the regular session in a half an hour, 5:30.